Hi, and welcome to the third installment of Justice Now Teen Voices. This is a three-part series that I'm hosting here on my YouTube channel. The Righteous Conversations Project connects Holocaust survivors with teens and helps them understand the larger issues and implications of the Holocaust and how they reflect and can inform the way we deal with injustice now. So without further ado, here are the teens from the Righteous Conversations Project.
Thank you, Mayim, for this amazing platform you have allowed us to have over the course of this series. I'm Dovely King. I'm a senior at George Washington Preparatory High School in Inglewood. Over the course of these videos, we have been learning about the many characteristics that play into dehumanization, systemic racism, and everyday discrimination. For the final episode, we want to encourage you all to have this talk at the dinner table to ensure that we as a people do not keep making the same mistakes. It is important to note that these conversations will be different from household to household, depending on your family's race, racial identity, beliefs, and history. We will be breaking this episode into two parts. In the first part, we will show the RCP microfilm titled A Different Conversation by filmmakers Lauren Fuchs, Soraya Slack, and Karen Wallman. The film will be followed by a conversation between the filmmakers and panelists. We will then show the microfilm Talk to Your Parents by filmmakers Julian Liu and Josiah McZeal. That will be followed by a conversation between previous panelists Charlie Nevins and Trey Carlisle and the filmmakers. Please enjoy the first film, A Different Conversations.
You know your curfew.
Keep your hands at 10 and 2.
And don't forget that if there is alcohol, to call me.
Stay calm.
If there's any sort of emergency and you can't reach me, call the police.
Don't make any sudden movements.
Just throw on a jacket and don't forget that if there's alcohol, to call me.
Do what the officer tells you.
Have fun, sweetie. Love you.
Your job is to come home. I love you.
These conversations shouldn't be so different.
No child should have to fear the police.
End police brutality.
We want justice now.
Very, very, very powerful. Now I am joined by filmmaker Karen Wallman, Lauren Fuchs, and Soraya Slack. Thank you, ladies, for joining me today. I'm so happy. So let's get right into it. My first question for you all is, how did you all come to make this piece, and does it reflect actual conversations you have at home?
I would say that we really wanted to make a piece that highlighted both the similarities and differences that we experience, as we all have different backgrounds, identities, we're of different races, and so we wanted to capture that in film. And I personally have had some of these conversations at home with my parents. Some of the remarks that were made in the film, like if there's alcohol at the party, call me. If you want to be picked up, if anything happens, call the police. Those are definitely things that I've been told growing up. So that was helpful in terms of incorporating my experience as a white young woman going out into the world.
You guys have come to understand these differences and made this powerful piece. So for that, I'm very grateful for. You, Soraya, how did you come to make this piece, and does it reflect actual conversations that you have at home?
Yes, it does. When I was earlier in the year, my dad had a conversation with me about if the police pulls me over, and put my hands 10 and 2 on the steering wheel. And yes.
That was actually going to be my next question for you. Like, have you had this conversation on how to protect yourself as a Black woman? For me, I didn't have a conversation about police brutality, or my mom ever sitting me down and saying, or my dad, sitting me down and saying, oh, this is what you should do, or this is how you should react. I guess I kind of assumed, and I kind of took it upon myself to kind of learn these different things. But it's so great that you had that conversation. What was the conversation like among you all? Soraya, can we start with you?
The conversation was very instructional. My dad had told me to put my hands on 10 and 2 in the steering wheel, and he told me to follow everything and do everything that the police officer says to do.
Is there anything that you may have learned from the other ladies?
Yes, I learned that we all need to keep educating ourselves on the matter and the fact, and on all the stuff that's going on in the world.
Yes, definitely agree with you. Can you talk about what was going on in the world in the making of this film, and how did that play a part in the film? And what are your hopes for the future?
Well, while I was making the film, I saw in the news that there were a lot of people during protests, during COVID-19, and making signs and holding up signs and walking down the streets. And I also saw on the news, on the street in big black letters, they wrote "All Black Lives Matter." And I thought that was really nice. My hopes for the future of the film are that the world starts to change more and more, and I hope that the film really makes an impact on everyone, and people think twice before what they do and their actions and what they say.
We started making the film right a couple weeks after George Floyd's murder and the uprise began, and so I hope that I really hope that for me, at the beginning I definitely felt pretty helpless as a white person. I hope that people realize that there are more ways to get involved, and there are more creative ways to get involved too. And I think people just need to use their strengths and what they can bring to the table in order to spread awareness on these issues, no matter what race you are, what your identity is, what background you're from. Everyone can bring something to the table and have these conversations like we did before making this film, which are really powerful.
What you guys said is all amazing, and you guys are very bright, and I'm super glad that you guys came to talk about this subject. So I want to say thank you for joining us, and now we will watch the film Talk to Your Parents.
Hey everyone, my name is Charlie Nevins, and I'm a filmmaker and RCP alum. I'm joined by RCP alum and artivist Trey Carlisle to talk with filmmakers Julian Liu and Josiah McZeal to talk about their film, #Talk to Your Parents. Please enjoy.
What are your thoughts on racism?
What are your thoughts on racism?
Everything negative comes to my mind when I think about racism.
People of a certain race or skin color think themselves are more superior than others.
And next I would like to talk about anti-blackness.
George Floyd! George Floyd! I can't breathe! I can't breathe! I can't breathe!
How does racism affect you?
How does racism affect you?
I went to a coffee shop. There was this white old man who gave me a really dirty look just because he thinks I don't belong there.
You know, you can tell when someone's racist when the way they treat you, and it's a vibe you get. It's a very cold vibe.
I don't think I should be judged in any way based on my skin color.
What changes to race relations
Do you want to see in America?
I would like to see people get along on a real level, not like fake, not just tolerating each other, but embracing each other.
I really hope that privileged people, no matter what race they are, can step up.
I would like to see, Latinos, blacks, Asians, and whites reflected in the workplace, I think if you do that, you will see a lot of changes.
Why do you think we haven't talked about this before?
I think we have, but not enough.
What role do you think I should play
In the movement for Black Lives?
But maybe you can be more aware of the conversations you're having and challenge people more. I think your role is to be challenging to people around you.
I think first of all, you should learn the historical background of this movement.
Don't be afraid. Be open to talk about, our history, how they think about, different minorities.
And understand why and how it happens. Form your own perspectives.
Black Lives Matter.
And then after that, you can show your support through listening and participating more events with caution.
If you look at our lives, African American lives, if our lives matter, then everybody's lives matter. So it's all connected.
We want justice. Now.
Wow. It was such a gift to be able to see the film that you both produced. And it's really inspiring for me as an RCP alum to see the next generation of RCP youth continuing to make films that are important and that matter and that call for justice. So much respect to both of y'all. So I would love to talk with y'all more about the filmmaking process. So could y'all describe to me what was the process for making this film?
We basically brainstormed our ideas. We had an idea at first where we were going through the experiences of a made-up Black person and like the difficulties of daily life. And since we didn't want to be in the video itself, we came up with the idea of including our parents in their past experiences because they have probably had a lot of experiences with racism.
Wow. So what did you learn about your families when you interviewed them and learned about their stories? What did you learn about them?
Listening to my mom's story kind of affected my view on overall racism because she's a strong woman in my eyes. And since it affected her, it gave me, I guess, an idea of that, like, it affects everyone, not just like Black people, not just Asians, like overall everyone.
My dad has like talked about before how we like pulled over. It's like a scary experience, and yeah, he used to talk about it like before and saying that how like ignorant for cops to do that, and how it's like it just like creates this like tension between cops just like randomly pulling over Black people. So yeah.
Mm-hmm. The last question that we have for you guys, and you and Trey are going to answer as well, is, kind of a brief story time segment. So do you guys have any specific stories of talking to your families, not just your parents, about racism or about politics that have been either productive or not so productive?
Usually in my household, we talk about a lot about politics, and we like openly talk about it like a normal family conversation at the dinner table. There's times where I have to like deal with like certain microaggressions and certain like stereotypes and derogatory terms that people have said to me, and usually I like go to my parents to like discuss about it and like how I want like how I should like deal with this situation in the future.
I remember really well the week that the George Floyd murder occurred, and kind of the following week of protests. All of my grandparents, at least my grandparents on my mom's side, and my dad's mom, are basically living with us during this time of quarantine. So it's been 8 people at the dinner table every night. So there's been a lot of conversations, and like there's 3 different generations and a lot of different political opinions. And while those protests were going on and people were talking about this murder and kind of what is the the kind of the state of the police in the United States right now, it was kind of both a time of education, where we were all reading things and all talking about them together, because my grandparents were very open, to hearing these new opinions and to kind of trying to understand, other people's experiences. So I think, that was a really interesting period to kind of go through with my entire family. And I think we all learned a lot over that period from just talking with each other.
Yeah, it's really been a meaningful, challenging at many points, but also I think very educational experience to be able to talk with my family about the realities of systemic racism and anti-Black racism with my family, extended family members spanning 3 or 4 generations, honestly. And it's been very meaningful to engage in dialogue with them about it, because sometimes we will have discussions and we will talk and we'll have different opinions on it, different opinions on whether defunding the police is a solution or seeking for reform, different opinions on this example in the murder of George Floyd being a reflection of the history of systemic oppression towards Black folks in the US versus just an example of police brutality solely. And being in those spaces where we have those different opinions is very challenging. But it's also been very meaningful because it's allowed us to be able to not only open our minds when we hear different perspectives, but also recognize that because we are family and because we love each other and we empathize with each other, we're able to practice showing love and appreciation and empathy towards each other, even when we have different opinions. And I think that's a really important skill for us to practice in the world when it comes to taking action against dehumanization and learning to accept and embrace people of different cultural, religious, racial, or even just ideological backgrounds. Learning how to interact and live and work together with people of different perspectives and experiences. It's a really essential skill to have when it comes to social justice and peace building. So being with my family and talking with them about this has kind of been a microcosm of that.
That's a great way to bring this conversation to a close. So thank you all for joining us today. And thank you to these panelists for lending their voices to this conversation. This will close out our 3-part series. So let me send it back to you, Mayim.
I want to take this opportunity to thank the teens of the Righteous Conversation Project for Justice Now Teen Voices. I was so inspired when I saw this group of teenagers presenting their films, and reached out to the organization to see if they might be interested in doing something and having a larger platform to talk about what they've learned, the way they present information. I find really compelling, and I actually had my tween and teen son participate in the seminar where we learned about this incredible project. So I'm very, very thrilled to have been able to host it here. If you'd like to learn more, we'll include the link below for Righteous Conversations Project. And I want to thank in particular our teen filmmakers and activists for all of their time. And if you'd like to learn more, check out the link below. Thanks.